Now, just by stirring, unfortunately, look at all these lumps. There is a solution to these problems. Oh yes. Right, so we've got our steeping grains into the kettle now. We're bringing it up to a boil. Almost there. Just short of 30 litres, which is what we want. We've also got the DME here, which has been completely dissolved into some water for the beginning and at the end of the boil. Now all that's left to do is to prepare our hop additions. We're just about coming to a boil. So we're at a boil. We can begin our 60-minute timer, and we can add the first half of the DME. So this goes in. Wonderful. Well folks, we've now almost reached a boil with the DME added. So once this hop break has passed, then we're going to add our first addition of hops. Really need to keep this under control so we don't get a boil over. If I just grab the camera very quickly, you can clearly see our volume is all the way down here, halfway down. And yet look at that. That's virtually almost at the top. Well, that hop break has passed, so it's time for our first addition of hops. We've got 22.1 grams of Challenger. At 60 minutes. And now we're just going to let that boil all the way to 45 minutes before we add our second addition of hops. Right then, so we've got about 5 minutes left of the boil. The immersion chiller has gone in, so let's get that hooked up to the hose. We'll let that sanitize for the last few minutes. We've got some buckets for the outfeed. And once we're at flame out, we're going to add our final addition of hops. Now what you didn't see was the second addition of hops, which was made at 15 minutes, and that was 8 grams of Goldings. And we also put in our good friend Irish moss to help for clearing in the fermentation process. Alright, with 1 minute to spare, we're going to add our final addition of Goldings. Here we go. Wonderful, and that's all our hops dealt with. So 1 more minute and then it's flame out and we can begin the cooling process. Right, so we've got our immersion chiller chilling down the brew now. We're sitting somewhere around 35 degrees, so it's cooling pretty quickly. But in the meantime, I've been sanitizing everything, which I've got down here in a pot, ready for us to be able to pitch our yeast. I'm sanitizing the fermenter up in the kitchen. Apart from that, there isn't much else to do except make sure we stay sanitized, because you can never go overboard with your sanitization. One of the biggest things about brew day, keep everything sanitized. Well folks, we've come this far. The beer is chilled to about 21 degrees. It's time to put this into the fermenter, and we've got a simple straining bag here that's hopefully just going to filter out some of that hop residue. And here she is. No going back now. Oh, she is a beast. Now, just before we pitch our yeast, there's one final thing to do, and that's take a hydrometer reading of our original gravity. So I'm just laying down a nice Beatles towel before we do this, so we don't get the floor absolutely coked. We've got my trial jar, we've got our hydrometer, and of course we've got our sterilised wine beer thing right here. So I put an airlock in just to be safe while this fermenter is sitting around waiting for yeast, and let's thief a sample. Put it in, put my thumb over the end, and withdraw some of that liquid. So we've got our sample. Let's take a very quick reading. We are sitting right around 138. We're sitting right around 138, 136, somewhere between those, which is great. That's exactly our expected OG. Wonderful, wonderful stuff. Well, this is now the final hurdle. This is pitching the yeast. We're using Safale S04 for this, and I've had some boiling water in this measuring jug now for about 15 minutes. It's now down to 21.8 degrees. Covered it with some foil, and I've had it in just a saucepan full of ice to bring that temperature down. So this water is now ready for yeast. And in our sanitizing solution, I've had just a simple pair of scissors, and we're going to pop the yeast in here to rehydrate it and get it going. All we're going to do here is sprinkle these on, let them sit for 10 minutes, give it a stir, let them sit for another 10 minutes. And then we could finally pitch them. Again, we're going to cover it over some foil. Look at that. What a terrible job that is. That is the worst piece of foil imaginable there. And we're going to leave that for 10 minutes. And then we're going to give that a swirl with a sterilised spoon. Well, we've got our yeast here all ready to go. So now the only thing left to do is pitch this into the fermenter, into the wort. Thanks for watching, everyone. Hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it's been of some use, of some interest. Hopefully you can take something away with this to maybe improve your brew day. Maybe if you're doing your first one, or maybe if you've done a few already. Thanks for watching.